And really what you've shown in such a beautiful way, intentionally or not, is that when we actually slow down, we begin to pace our moments and we stop being drawn outwards by all the unbelievable stresses and conflicts and busyness of our world.
Hello, welcome,
How are
Stephen.
you, Holly? Welcome to everybody. It really is a
Uh,
great and immeasurable pleasure to be here. So
it's an
thank
immeasurable pleasure to have you here. Super exciting. And welcome all our friends who are watching us as well. This is HeartMind Happy Hour, my kind of weekly show exploring, I don't know, consciousness, energy, meditation. We're kind of going all over the place. It's been a ton of fun. And I'm Holly Copeland, and I have a coaching business called HeartMind Alchemy, and kind of moderating this community. And I'm having a blast doing this, honestly, and all these amazing people here. I'm going to try to moderate to, in about half an hour, look deliberately at questions so that if you post your questions, I'll try to do a better job than I've done in the past of taking time to look at those and ask. So please do post your questions if you have them. Let's just take a moment to get into presence together, everybody. A couple of deep breaths. Send a grounding cord down deep into the earth. Center ourselves in our awareness. In the space in this room. So grateful to have this time together. All of us here. Incredible moment to be alive. All right. Well, we could just sit here and meditate for the next hour, and that would be wonderful, but maybe we should have a conversation.
That would be pretty funny, right? If we
Right?
just, yeah, sat in the stillness and the silence and the spaciousness of the first 5 seconds. And and really what you've shown in such a beautiful way, intentionally or not, is that when we actually slow down, we begin to pace our moments and we stop being drawn outwards by all the unbelievable stresses and conflicts and busyness of our world, that suddenly you are drawn inwards using interoception, using mindfulness. And within just a few, I think that was maybe 60 seconds, it's suddenly a whole different world opens up. And it's a world that can create a foundation and a place for peace and love and light throughout your day, just by simply turning inwards and by generating that incredible power of mindfulness in that space. So that was wonderful. We couldn't hope for a better start, because everybody who's tuned in is doing exactly that. They're suddenly stopping, and in that pause, you turn inwards. And if you've never turned inwards before, that can be quite a shock to the busy mind. The busy mind is going, wait on a minute, haven't I got something to do? No, there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. What is really happening right here and now? In fact, Nothing. Everything else that's being created is just a story that you're telling yourself about how to perceive. And that's generally within a very, very limited space. So you're missing 99% of the universe all at once because you're choosing to believe your own story. So it's really quite an amazing thing to stop and do what you did. So thank you. That was a wonderful blessing right at the beginning.
You're so welcome. I'm really honored to have you here. I think I bear worth to take a minute to introduce my honored guest, Stephen Altair, who's a healer and author and mystic and teacher and an incredibly wise and generous and loving person. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. In truth, I'm not sure who I am anymore. I mean, in reality, when I go into meditation these days, the part of me that's always told myself lots of little stories since I was little about I'm an author, I'm a healer, no longer exists. It's vanished. It's actually vanished completely. So I don't really know who I am anymore. Sometimes I think I should introduce myself as a nameless, timeless one rather than as anything else. It seems to have just as much importance, meaning having some kind of movement of consciousness in it, as describing me as an author or a healer or anything else. So I think I'll reconsider. I'm not sure how the immigration department will take it if I turn up and describe myself as the nameless, timeless one. I'm not sure that I'll get a visa to anywhere. Not that I actually need a visa these days to travel, because I'm not going anywhere, which is really quite a remarkable way of looking at the world. I've got nothing to do because I'm in lockdown, and I've got nowhere to go because I can't get a visa. So therefore I am probably by definition a nameless and timeless one.
Well, welcome, nameless, timeless one. We're honored to have you here.
It's a true honor. And, you know, levity and joy aside, it is really a wonderful opportunity that we all have here when we're looking at, just so we'll mention it just for a moment, when we're looking at the outer pandemic and the difficulties with health, and the inner pandemic and their difficulties with dealing with our mental health and our mental state. We've got this wonderful opportunity to no longer go back to normal, but to actually step into a new state of consciousness and awareness, which is what we're talking about here. And that is, and also, how do we go about the shift? How can we go about a shift of awakening? What does that really mean? Since that word is bandied about and used in lots of different ways, what does it really mean to awaken? What does it mean to go inside and treasure this remarkable world that is invisible for most of us? So I think that's, so perhaps to begin, you'd like to share your experience, because I know you've been on this path really for a long time. When we count not just this life, but many lives, and when we count all the kinds of predispositions, because in a way, a past life is really just another story. And it's a story with a lot of insight if you're able to tap into it. So what do you bring to the path of consciousness and awareness? How have you explored it? What insights have you had into the nature of reality for you? And what's present right here and now for you?
Yeah. I suspect it has been a long path. You know, and I know that even in this lifetime, I, started really early on, very much a seeker, very much wanting to understand what was behind the veil. And I think what feels most relevant and was relevant to what's going on right now in this incredible, challenging time and this shift where so many of us are experiencing is, so a year and a half ago or so, when I was in this big radical life shift and changing some external things around, quitting my job and trying to deal with the health issues and things, And I came to this point where it felt like, dang it, if I can't learn to be happy now, I'm never going to be happy. I can't figure this out. If I can't wake up with basically things, you know, yeah, of course there's waves, but if I can't figure that out, you know, then this is just going to be one giant Groundhog Day that's going to go on forever and ever. And I'm just going to wake up each day and kind of things are going to be okay. And I just didn't want to settle for that anymore. I was convinced there was something I was missing really big. And it was my own wanting that, I guess I'll say just selfishly, like wanting to be in a better place. But even more than that, it was like, I need to figure this out so I can be of service to others. Like I really owe it to everybody else. Like with all that I have, with everything I have coming from a, you know, being a affluent, you know, American, having enough food, having a house, you know, I owe it to people to give a lot more than I'm giving. And I am not going to be able to do that unless I can figure out within myself how to like finally just sort of be happy and be able to be a lighthouse was the image that I used for myself. I just wanted to be a lighthouse for other people. And so I basically said, I need to wake up. I mean, I remember thinking that very consciously. I need to wake up. And having just watched The Matrix last weekend with my family, I feel like I took the red pill.
Beautiful way.
And
well, Neo would be proud.
Yeah, and you've sort of become the Morpheus in my life.
Oh, I'm honored.
Fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the rabbit hole is deep, right?
Right. Well, I didn't realize how deep it was the time I took the red pill, which Neo didn't either, right? And the more I've fallen down it and the bigger the holes got and the deeper, I'm like, this is interesting. I'm curious where this goes.
It's a wonderful way of expressing it, right? Because in our lives, we begin our lives really heavily conditioned by society, parents, even by genetics, if you want to look at it in that terms. So we come in with all these kinds of predispositions and ways of perceiving the world. And yet, within all of that, unless our parents guide us, there's very little prodding to go and investigate that inner world. There is, as you said, you know, you came to it yourself. You were the one who prompted yourself to awaken out of just a sheer desire to give back. And actually, when you look at that desire to give back, there's some very potent principles that underlie this innate desire we want to reach out and help. And they tend to be gratitude, the really powerful presence of gratitude in our lives for everything that we have, whether it's little or whether it's big. And then that point you get to where you have to surrender. So there's an enormous amount of humility that comes in when you say to yourself, I want to wake up. I mean, the Buddha woke up, so why can't I? What's stopping me? So there's a point in your journey where you want to explore the rabbit hole. And it does require a lot of humility. Rabbit holes are not that big, it seems. And not only that, we don't realize we are the rabbit. We kind of think we've got to go down some other hole that's separate from us until we suddenly find out inexplicably that that rabbit hole is right inside, and that all our lives, like Neo, for the first part of it, we've been taught an illusion. We've been taught that all the answers lie out there, and that these five senses that we're constantly conditioned to use are the answer to what lies out there. And we're taught so little about the sixth sense, and we're taught so little about ways to activate our attention. So if you consider it, our attention tends to shift from point to point where what's my true job? What's my best relationship? Oh, I've got a health concern. We're not so often taught about the power of the path. So not just the point of attention, but a path of attention. Where do we really get taught about that depth of path? So to take for an example, the breath, you focus on a breath, and there's no schooling to teach us about awareness of the breath, unless we're fortunate enough to be brought up under the guidance of a teacher or a master. It's not taught in every school how to go from understanding the point of focus of a single breath to understanding a path and the energy that lies in a breath, to understanding a field of awareness when it comes to a breath, that you can actually feel like you're breathing in an entire space, to then letting go altogether of the me that is deciding to make a choice and go from a point, a path and a field, and into a choiceless state of awareness. We tend to, in our society where so much is driven by more, we tend to believe that everything is about choice. We have to make choices or otherwise we're going to lose something. We have to make choices or otherwise we're going to be behind. But there's also this 99% of otherness that involves non-choice or no self or choiceless attention, which is when you start to let go. And I think that rabbit hole that you're talking about is various states and progressions of letting go, various ways of shifting awareness, which is really what we're going to be talking about, is how does one shift from an ordinary state of awareness into the full immersion and absorption in the rabbit hole itself, and beyond that, how do we go? So I think that's, that is a remarkable thing, and I do think that more and more in our society we're aware that unless you're a shaman or a psychic or a meditator or along a path of really deep interoception, that you don't touch that sixth sense, that intuitive awareness or that awareness of mind. You're not actually taught. It's not a subject in our schools to teach the sixth sense, and yet we teach so many other things to do with the five senses, yet we don't go beyond that. So it's no wonder that when you say to people, well, you've just got to let go, that no one knows, how do I let go? How do I let go? Because there's this narrative voice, there's this constant inner chatter that's been going on my whole life, and now I'm starting to become aware of it. So I do think this, I think the understanding the points of attention on the path, going from point to path to field to no choice or choiceless attention, is a really critical part of understanding how to shift awareness. So we're going to get into how to shift awareness, but I did want to hear more of your story, and I just thought it was really a good place to point out about the rabbit hole and the way our attention plays such an important part in enabling us to go deep in the rabbit hole. So we've spoken about this in the Raising Our Vibration core group, about when you do, we often use the example of bringing your attention to the point of a finger. And I like also using the example of attention of a point in the room. So if you're sitting there listening now, and really crucial to all this, crucial to understanding the entrance to the rabbit hole, is being able to understand stillness. When you look at going back to the Matrix and all those remarkable abilities that Neo opens up to, they are actually in you. And yet they come when you let go of that narrative self, when you let go of the story, because the story is the matrix, it's binding you. And when you let go of that and you enter stillness, which you may not have explored to any real sense of depth at any time of your life, that stillness is the key to making the leap beyond the matrix itself. And so when you start to realize these different points of attention, so if you're sitting there listening and you look at a point in your room, so just take any particular point and just watch it for a moment. Be aware of the point and be aware of what's present now. So when you're aware of the point, can you be aware of the point free of any chatter, free of any dialogue? Just watch the point. And as you're watching the point, you'll begin to be aware, a bit like an onion, that layers start to strip away. Your body starts to calm down. The breathing slows. The pacing of that inner narrative self slows. These are really crucial to understand that you have a pace, all of us do. We have a heartbeat that we operate to, like the beat of our own drummer. And when you go inwards and you start to move into stillness, watching this point, you begin to become aware of your drummer, the inner self. And then connect that point in your room to you. Connect it, say, to the tip of your nose. Imagine that there's a stream of energy, a path, that as you watch the point, there's a stream of energy that comes into you with the inward breath and flows out of you with the outward breath. See if you can feel that energy stream. Being aware of subtle energy is really helpful. You may be aware as you become still like this, that you also become aware of that energy in other parts of your body. Sometimes your hands start to vibrate with chi or shakti. Sometimes you might feel it in your spine or sometimes in your brain. You're actually doing just one thing, being still and absorbed on this path. So nothing else is happening, but something very deep is happening in that rabbit hole. Something in that pill that you've decided to reach out for is activating a different kind of awareness. You're getting a glimpse of awareness itself. And then, as you're watching the point and being aware of the connection between 2 points, the point in your room and the point in your nose, the tip of your nose, you become aware of the energy flow. Have you noticed when something is constant, like an energy flow, everything else around you starts to vanish? Even the sense of the room, sense of yourself. Just this simple practice of stillness and absorption on a path. It's the only thing that's constant. You're totally present with the path. When you're present, time vanishes. And when you're still like this, you're noticing things are starting to disappear, as if the elements themselves are not there anymore. Now you extend your awareness into the field So just a simple way of doing it is just to extend that path out infinitely around. So do it in a simple way to feel the space of the field of your room. So now instead of sensing the energy in the path, you're sensing the formless nature of the room. Spacious awareness. It's all around you and within you. Perhaps you're aware that there's no distinction between the spacious awareness within you and the spacious awareness that's all around you. As that me vanishes, the field comes into being. You're very, very still. Keep bringing yourself back to that simple awareness of what's here now, what's present. Present moment, presence is a key to timelessness. Do you feel it? Do you feel that sense of timelessness? It's as if you could sit here forever, sitting in that spacious awareness. And now let go of all choice whatsoever. Just simply allow the infinite expanse of this awareness to be without choice. Let it extend out in infinite directions. When you do, it's as if the emptiness of the space comes alive. It's as if there is a vibrancy, an intelligence, a clear, luminous awareness, the presence of light. Because it's unbound. As you let go, the unbound nature arises within you. You're very, very still. Just for a few moments. If you need to, just close your eyes. So just slowly bring your awareness back into the body. That spacious awareness, that luminous presence inside you. So as you open your eyes, just a crack at a time, feel the waves of consciousness within you. Use your sixth sense to feel how they're moving within you. There's a pulse. There's a pulse that's unique to you. That's your unique brain signature. Your unique heart signature. As you open your eyes, keep that same gratitude, surrender, humility. It's like coming to this clear light of luminous awareness, like a small child, filled with innocence, gratitude, love, deep peace, serenity, forgiveness, light. Such an immeasurable sense of gratitude that comes for being in this space. So thank you for that short practice.
Thank you. I didn't really expect we were going to go there.
I didn't either. The beautiful part about the rabbit hole is that it is truly infinite and that it has no real expectations, and that it just allows you to do everything and do nothing all at the same time. The emptiness and the fullness that we were speaking about.
Yeah. The grace of being fluid is what the two words that come to mind to me.
That grace is very potent indeed. Like when you think of some of the ancient practices like Mahamudra, where there is a grace from the yoga of what's called one taste, or the meditation with no meditator.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful story of a very famous practitioner who, when he went to see his master, before he visited, he went out into the forest, and he had an experience where he sat in the stillness, wondering how he was going to approach the master. What experience of transcendence or enlightenment he could possibly relay that would impress the master. And as he was there, he stayed in the forest for some days and finally visited the master. And the master asked him, "You've taken some time to be here." And the practitioner who went on to also become a master said, "I was wondering, curious how I should approach you and what experience I should give you." The master said, "So what did you come up with?" And he said, "Well, I sat in the forest for 3 days, but now that I've returned or come to you, I come with no meditation and no meditator and nothing to speak of." And the master looked at him in the eyes and realized that this student at the time was going to become one of the most famous masters of all time, because he really, I almost get tears in my eyes. Oh, thinking of it, because it's just like, it is actually that beautiful and that simple. It is, we complicate things so much with this story we've told ourselves about the Matrix. It's very complex. That's why, like you, I love the film, because it really demonstrates how complicated humanity can become, and really how simple the Tao or the way or being is. Being requires not much more than just taking time out to turn inwards into reception, bring a sense of presence, mindfulness. As you're really present, time vanishes, timelessness. As you go deeper still, all the elements disappear. Sound, anything that's been distracting us just gets stripped away and vanishes. And then at the last point, when you're very, very still, and there's maybe this subtle question, where do I go? Or what do I do? And then you ask yourself, who's the one asking that question? And then you realize there is absolutely nowhere to go. And as you fall into the rabbit hole, you fall into that emptiness, and you allow unconditionally that emptiness to embrace you, there is, exactly as you've described, that beautiful flow of grace that comes in. And that flow of grace can come through whatever object you've taken of absorption. It could be like in Anapanasati Sutra, your object of attention could be the breathing. So you could have absorbed to the point where the breath vanishes. Or like Ramana Maharshi, the object of your attention could be I. Who am I? And the I at that point has vanished. Whereas in Yogananda with Kriya Yoga and the subtle energy and the power of the Kriya breath and the star that arises becomes the object of your attention. And that too vanishes. And you become absorbed into what lies beyond the breath, what lies beyond the I, what lies beyond the star. All those elements vanish. And then what lies beyond is more magnificent and more extraordinary than anything you can possibly imagine. So in this time of great stress and fatigue and health problems, the most powerful way to bolster our immune system is actually to go to the source of the immune system, the source itself. And the source lies nowhere else other than within you. And this simple truth is such a beautiful and simple truth that if alongside our wonderful healthcare workers, we had wonderful healers and meditators helping people with their mental health to actually look inwards and find the source. And then you suddenly realize, to your astonishment, that the source you were seeking is actually seeking you. And that the source is right there. And it's never been far away, which is what we imagine, especially when we go on the search for enlightenment. The seeker is always trying to find something.
Alan, you're reminding me, I was listening to an Alan Watts lecture. There's some wonderful Alan Watts lectures on YouTube. And he said just that, if you are trying to find awakening or enlightenment, you'll never find it. Such a conundrum.
It is.
It's such a conundrum. I was doing the dishes and I just sat there like doing the dishes like, oh no.
So how have you solved that conundrum? How have you approached it? What is it? What has worked for you in terms of that conundrum?
It's a good question. So you speak of stillness, and in the practice of anapanasati and really diving deep into stillness, and with Ajahn Brahm's beautiful book, Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond. And I've been listening to his lectures as well. I have found in my own practice, going into that stillness has become, as I've described it to you, like walking through these different gates or peeling these different layers of onions away. And I love Ajahn Brahm's, he has so many great similes, but he describes, the senses as the emperor's clothes, that you have to disrobe the emperor, to find your true self, presumably find the source of all this stillness, or the source. And to do that, you just get very, very, very still. And I know that I know there's many levels beyond stillness that I haven't gotten to yet, but what I can say is that in the gates that I have walked through, they've been very distinct and very clear. And when I walk through them, I know. There's no question. So like, sometimes I'll sit in meditation, I'll be like, I wonder, is it really real? Am I going to really feel that? And then I like keep waiting and I keep waiting and I keep waiting. And I walk through the gate and I go, oh, there it is. I just let go
Right.
of a layer of thought. It's really interesting.
That's a wonderful description. You remind me of the mantra from the Heart Sutra, Te da gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisattva, which really is talking about letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, and letting go again, or going beyond and going beyond and going beyond and going beyond and going beyond again. Because as soon as you think you've gone beyond, you realize that there is other layers, and then there are deeper layers. And the Dalai Lama described this as having a series of gates, exactly as you're describing, through which you're going through. So te da is like to be prepared, and then te da gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhiswaha. So you are actually creating and letting go bodhiswaha until you are free, liberated.
Yeah. And the good news is that even in my experience, even just walking through, I would say maybe I'm like through the third gate, something like that, second or third, even that, which I know is just at the beginning of this whole deep rabbit hole, has been, even where I'm at when I get there in meditation, I don't want to leave. I feel like I could sit there forever. And why would I get up? That's how it feels, even at that first 2 or 3 gates, which is kind of astonishing to me to feel that way. It just makes me curious, curious about what lies beyond and beyond and beyond and beyond.
I think you've described also a very important aspect of stillness. And that is that when that timelessness and stillness merge, you actually lose any sense of will or volition. So the will, which has been predominantly driving the seeker up to that point, actually lessens its hold until it does drop away. And there are various layers of awareness that take you into those immutable states where you can sit there and you feel like you can sit there forever. There is absolutely no volition to get up. The only thing that's probably going to wake you in my case is my 5-year-old coming to sit on my knee and saying, Dada, I need you to come and help me build a castle. In
Or
which
my
case,
dog. who needed to be let out this morning.
Yes, your dog, any of the demands of our world. And that the really beautiful part of that is as you enter those immutable spaces of peace and luminous awareness and bliss and wisdom, your way that you move out of that when your dog does interrupt you is completely different from how you might have done it before. So in my 5-year-old's case, she knows that when she comes to sit on my lap, if she really needs something, she has to wait. So she waits, and she knows there's when she comes there, she knows she's got to wait a period of time before I'm actually going to enter into a moving state with her where I'm going to. So there's an agreement. And she had a beautiful expression for this morning, because I've been explaining to my wife and daughter that it's actually not as simple as me opening my eyes, that I'm actually in a very deep state of absorption, and it takes me an equal amount of time to engage with them in a way, because that engagement also has that same degree of humility and gratitude and surrender and grace, as you were talking about. And in order to engage with grace, we might actually engage in a slightly different way than people are used to us engaging. It's very curious what our consciousness reveals to us at that point. So my daughter said to me, "Oh, so your meditation has become a lightation." And she said, "Oh, it's just filled with light, right, Dada?" And I said, because she's been with me before when she sat, and she's experienced things by virtue of us being together, perhaps by being really close to consciousness, because this consciousness is not unique to me or you or anybody else. We all have access to pure consciousness, or turiya, as Ramana Maharshi called it, which we tend to have those 4 states, the waking, the sleeping, the dreaming, and then pure consciousness. So when you're in a state of pure consciousness, and especially as you're going through layers and levels of awareness, of deepening consciousness, there is a different way you begin to interact with your world. And there's a different pace. And there's a different sense of awareness. There's more witnessing. And there's more peace. Now, I'm also aware that people maybe have commented or are asking things. So if people do have questions, then I'd be more than happy, and I know you'd be more than happy to answer them, because this is really a dialogue. We're dialoguing together in pure consciousness.
Yeah. And I was just looking, and there was one comment, but I'm having trouble getting to it, and I'm wondering if you can see it, Stephen.
I will be able to see it if I place my glasses on my head and have a closer look.
Thought I saw one, but maybe I don't.
I'm hoping people are so still that they are still absorbed in that.
No, I don't see it. I don't see it. So, but there are 2 places I wanted to that I'd love to explore with you. And one is emptiness and fullness. So you, I know, experience this incredible light. My experience so far, although there has been some emerging fullness, I don't see light per se yet, but feelings of love emerging. There is this concept in Buddhism about emptiness and fullness of consciousness or the universe. And it feels like most often I feel I'm in this emptiness, or sort of aware of this sparkling consciousness, but I don't feel it yet as this just like incredible, intense love. And so, this sort of, is there a need to coax the fullness or coax that aspect of consciousness, or or how would you describe a practice around that? And then I would love to go from there into taking it, into the waking world. Because really, I mean, a profound meditation is incredibly helpful for feeling connected and feeling like you're part of this larger consciousness. When you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes and you make breakfast for your kids and you go about your day, and finding ways to stay out of ordinary consciousness, as Annalisa calls it, sort of looking out from the window of the world from behind these two eyes and living from a different place of a awakened consciousness, and how we practice that in our day-to-day waking lives. Because I'm aware I've certainly been playing myself with shifting my perspective. I've been consciously moving about, my waking life, and just trying to live less from this sort of window on the world eyes to just feeling and being very conscious of consciousness itself. And I feels really like an important aspect. And I know, and Jeffrey Martin talks about these like sort of, moving through these different levels of awareness that you can literally live from every day, and how to practice that. So it's really taking what you learn on the cushion out into your everyday life. So.
Okay. No, that's a wonderful, both those, the emptiness and fullness question and how we take that into our lives. Those are really, really powerful and potent. So the simplest way possibly to approach this is for us to go into this together. And at the end, we can have a further dialogue about it. But it may be useful for you and anybody else that's listening, and myself, to actually engage in it as a direct perception, especially the emptiness and fullness. So if we just simply close our eyes together, because it's all very well to describe it intellectually about how to coax the fullness, but I'm going to gently, with humility, guide you into a space of surrender. So first of all, just intellectually and in terms of understanding, let's put into perspective exactly what you're saying about our waking awareness. So we tend to operate the majority of the time from an ordinary awareness, which is where we're driven by our thoughts rather than witnessing them. And when we start to develop an ordinary interoceptive awareness, we become aware of things like our posture, and we relax, and we become aware of the breath. So as you're sitting there, just simply become aware of your posture first with your feet placed flat on the floor if you're sitting in a chair. Or maybe you're seated on the ground in the lotus posture, or maybe you're lying on the bed. However you're sitting or lying or relaxing, be aware of your posture. Be aware of your feet, where your feet are. Be aware of your hands gently relaxed in your lap. Be aware of the energy in your hands and the energy as it melts down into your legs. Be aware of your spine, your posture. Be aware of a string as if it's pulling it upwards. So this is this first level where you're aware of ordinary awareness, and particularly interoceptive awareness as you turn inwards towards your breath. You can do this in a simple way by breathing and smiling, the inner Buddhist smile. So you keep your posture relaxed. You can feel perhaps energy arising, subtle energy. And you're very aware that you've turned inwards. Most of the time we're aware that we're identified with thoughts and feelings in our body. So we often think like that. We think as if we're looking out at the world in our head through our eyes. So we've got these stories that we're constantly making up in our thoughts. And we believe that that defines us. So we have a very limited view of who we are. And as we make this subtle shift, where we're witnessing the thought, in this case through the breath, we become aware that the thoughts are not us. There's a dimension that is not our thought. And it's not our emotion either. So we touch deeper and more subtle levels of mind and awareness, a mindfulness. Just simply be aware, for example, of the energy in your palms resting in your lap. Can you be aware of the energy in your hands? This is awareness of subtle energy. We're aware now at the energy awareness level. We've gone from ordinary interoceptive awareness and into awareness of subtle energy. We can actually feel energy within us. So expand your awareness from your palms and feel the energy inside your body, inside your skin. Feel the energy pulse through you. There's a great freedom in being able to witness not just your thoughts, but now energy. It's a deepening level of awareness. And then we become aware that even this energy is not us, because there's actually a witnesser that's aware of the energy. So we start to inquire into who is it that is observing, who is it that is witnessing. That dimension is not energy. That dimension is beyond the energy, beyond the form. That awareness is formless. Can you find I? Can you find the witness? Where is the witness? As you become aware of the witness itself, it's beyond all form, indivisible. Because there's thoughts and subtle energy and this witness. They're all simultaneously, both formless and form, both empty and full. And this formless emptiness, as we enter into it, is rich and vibrant. It's not separate. And the self is vanishing. This infinite awareness within you is everywhere within you and all around you. It's so very simple. So this witness consciousness, you're now becoming absorbed into the witness consciousness. So become aware of it. Breathe. Use the breath to guide this consciousness even deeper. Just become aware of the breathing in and out. So you're now witnessing the breath. We're going to use the relationship of the witness and the breath to absorb deeper and surrender. This beautiful breath and this witness of the beautiful breath. It's allowing you to absorb deeper and deeper. Stay focused on the breath. Just allow it simply to come in and out. Don't demand anything at all. Just simply be mindful and still. Watch as the elements around the breath disappear one by one. Notice around you, for example, a sound. Notice how the sound that's constant vanishes. The mind stops hearing it. And as things become constant, just as we shared with the point and path and field, spacious awareness, they vanish. Return to this absorption in the breath and notice where your breathing is right now. Is it long and subtle? What's present now? Use that witnessing consciousness to become really subtly aware of what is present. Is your consciousness through the breath long and subtle? Keep your focus gently on the beauty, the grace, the surrendering power of the breath. Because now you're looking inside in a deeper and deeper way. Each time you return to this grace within the breath, you'll see that consciousness is deepening. It's almost as if the breath itself is consciousness, and deep in the core of the breath is the subtlest feeling of love, as if you're coaxing a beauty in the breath, as if the breath itself is like a lover that you are romancing with beauty, with the greatest, deepest beauty in your heart. Look right at what is in front of you. Is the breathing still and subtle? As you sit there perfectly still, if nothing's moving, your body will vanish. Guided by the beautiful breath and the subtlety of the grace and this core of subtle love, it's riding in the breath. It tells you where your consciousness is at. You see who you are. You see the degree of consciousness displaying itself to you. How still are you? How subtle is the breath? How beautiful? How much grace is filled with the breath? How much love is at the core? Everything is disappearing just like this. The present moment, totally here with the breath, and time is vanishing. You're completely absorbed in this present moment of breathing that grace, that beauty, that bliss in the breath. You're coaxing it ever so gently. You're allowing the breath to become so subtle and soft. Now, the perception of the breath is barely there. You're deep into the present moment. The witness has clarity, equanimity, and your attention is simply on the beauty and grace and bliss of the breath, here and now. Time stands still, and time vanishes. Do you notice the space, the spacious awareness? Do you notice what is happening in your mind? Spacious awareness. What's happening? You are becoming alert, aware, awake, and there's no inner chatter. That chattering self has dissolved, and you are sitting very, very still. You can't feel the body. There's no sense of time. And there's only one movement, the grace, the surrender, the bliss of the breath. The breath still moves. Notice the sensations now, the breath, and just simply be willing to surrender to that grace, that subtle bliss in the breath, and watch it go in and out as you simply sit there, watching the breath go in and out under the Bodhi tree. The heart filled with gratitude and the subtlest awareness of grace and consciousness, of love, watching the breath go in and out, watching the breath go in and out until it's so soft and smooth that that very softness and smoothness is grace itself, love itself, beauty. There's no difference when the breath is so subtle. There's no difference between the in-breath and the out-breath. So, what happens? It vanishes because of the stillness. Everything is purified. We're just simply observing the space. And as you look at this space that has been nurtured by grace and the subtlest of bliss, you're looking at what is reflected back to you right here and now in this moment. You're looking at it as rod is right here. Because when you're still, that's where you are. Let go. It takes a lot of skill to allow the signs of pure consciousness to arise and be quiet and calm and still. Is your consciousness filled with grace and its subtlest of bliss? If it's not, go back to the grace and gratitude and surrender and bliss of the breath. Let's try that. Let your consciousness go again to the breath, and let the breath guide you into stillness through deepest gratitude. Surrender. Grace. Bliss. Your mind has to become very, very still. Nothing to do. Just simply relax to the in-breath and the out-breath. Surrender to the beauty and grace and bliss of the breath. Let it guide you home. Bring your attention again. Space of pure infinite consciousness. Is it stable and still? If it is, you can begin to go into the center of this grace, this bliss. You can allow yourself to fall into it. Let it envelop you. And if not, go back to the grace and bliss of the breath one last time. Breathing the whole breath all the way from the inhale all the way to the exhale. Relaxing into the in-breath and the out-breath. Surrendering to the beauty of the breath, the grace of the breath, the bliss of the breath. So subtle, guiding you home. Now, be aware of consciousness, becoming the light, becoming the peace, becoming the love, becoming the space, becoming pure, becoming the grace, becoming bliss, silence, stillness, spaciousness. You're allowing yourself to let go. You're allowing yourself to be still. Now, in this space of consciousness, pure consciousness, be aware of the space inside your skin. Be aware of the space of infinite consciousness and pure consciousness, as it is, right here, right now. I want you to press your thumb and forefinger together of both hands. I want you to anchor into your body this feeling, this state of pure consciousness, just as you are, right here and now. Keep the thumb and forefinger pressed together as you anchor this state in your body. Whenever you press your thumb and forefinger together throughout the day and pause, you will instantly be in this state of pure consciousness just as you are now. You will simply press your thumb and forefinger together. Pause. Wherever you are, eyes open or eyes closed, allow your attention to move inwards, to use interoception, and in simple mindfulness of the grace and the bliss, the deepest gratitude for all that is. Gently now, open your eyes a crack at a time, keeping that same spacious awareness, that same clarity and equanimity. Move very subtly, as if your movements are filled with the same grace as the beautiful breath and as your beautiful consciousness. Gently now open your eyes all the way. As you move and as you breathe, breathe with that same peace and awareness. Thank you for your practice. And throughout the day, because one of the questions that we were discussing was, how do we bring this awareness into everyday moments when we're dealing with our kids or the barking dog or our job? And to begin with, it's exactly as you so wisely spoke about in your meditation, that there is a series of gates that you pass through and deepening levels of consciousness. So throughout your day, set up a series of gates where at your front door you just pause and press the thumb and forefinger of your hands together in a mudra. And it just instantly, you take one simple breath, a breath of grace, whatever it is that you're really attuned to in that experience of pure consciousness. And then you go out to your car and you sit at the wheel, and just for a moment you pause. You join your thumb and your forefinger together and you bring to mind and heart that same deep sense of pure awareness. And as you build on this throughout your day, as more and more moments of your day start to link, you find there are more and more gates that you can open during your day, in the same way as you open gates in your meditation, in the same way as the Heart Sutra says, Te da gate gate para gate para samgate bodhi swaha. One gate and yet another, and then another, and then another. And as you keep opening them, not just during back to those 4 states, not just during your waking moments and sleeping and dreaming, and your states of pure consciousness and meditation. But if you go for all of them, so when you go to sleep at night, the last thing you do is you join your thumb and forefinger together. Your eyes are still. Gaze at the ceiling and you just tune into that same boundless, pure consciousness. And you fall awake in that state, and you dream in that state. And then you wake up, and the first thing you do is you join your thumb and forefinger together. And you breathe a breath of grace. And you wake in that state of pure consciousness. And then you go and have your breakfast and you sit. And basically it's like saying a prayer. It's like everything becomes a prayer or a blessing. Everything becomes gratitude. Everything becomes grace. Everything you do becomes a state of surrender and humility, like a small child. Everything becomes bliss, because you start to realize you were never separate from those states to begin with. The reason that they arise in you now is because they're within you. They're nowhere else. And you're the one that holds that bliss, grace, surrender, gratitude. You're the one that holds the light. You're the lighthouse, as you said in the beginning. There's nowhere you've got to look for the lighthouse. You already are that. And it's just a case of stripping away the onion peels, opening the gate again and again. You know, you think of the shepherd and the sheep. Shepherd has to open numerous gates to let the sheep in and out. The sheep are like your untrained awareness. You've got to keep coaxing them through the gates again and again, changing fields, allowing them to open and graze on those new fields of awareness. It's what your consciousness is like. It takes time, it takes a little time and a lot of patience. But when you truly, truly have the patience, and when you know that you can anchor these states and you can return to them again and again, and then it becomes easier. You've described how beautifully easeful it is for you to go through the first 3 gates, for example. So if you put those same 3 gates into your waking awareness, you'll find it's just as easeful to have those gates throughout your waking awareness. And you'll have spontaneous time. You'll be sitting there at breakfast and your kids will be demanding something from you, and suddenly this dawning of clear awareness. And I often talk to my wife and daughter about that, and they say, "Oh, are you okay?" And I say, "Oh, I feel so beautiful." And they say, "Oh, and they know that. They say, "Oh, you're in one of those." My daughter says, "You're just a babu, Dada," which is her word for a Buddha. And we are all Buddhas. We are all have the innate consciousness. I mean, the Buddha said that. We have that. It's right inside us. We are that. And there are definitely, it was one of the, I think it was Suzuki Roshi who said, we all have glimpses of enlightenment. You have those glimpses all the way through your life. You have times when you know you're right in that space of pure consciousness. It could be when you're in a state of great love. It could be when you're in a state of great grief and suddenly something shifts that grief. It could be in a moment of prayer. It could be something from childhood. It can be any one of a number of things that give you those glimpses of enlightenment. And that's kind of the point of doing that through your meditation, doing that through your waking moments, doing that through your dreams. I find it's, again, bringing your attention. It's all about training your attention. And when you really train, like we spoke about at the beginning, the point, path, field, and choiceless attention, when you really start to work with that, you realize how that applies to all our life. We need to have that flexibility of attention, and then we can also have flexibility in the states we shift through. You know, there are obvious times when you need to be very present in what we could call an ordinary state of interoceptive awareness, because we need to be right there, truly present for another human, individual, another person that is an animal, or there are times when we've got to be very present, and when we need to engage with a person with really deep level of humility, really deep level of interconnectedness. So there are times when we find, as we're working through these meditative states, that we shift from ordinary states of interoceptive awareness through to subtle energy states of awareness, through to formless states of awareness, and through into luminous clear light or non-dual awareness, which is really truly when there is a merging of the formless and the forms. So do share with us, just before, because I'm aware of the time, do share with us what you experienced as you were in that meditation.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, too.
Yeah, it was quite deep. And the words you used about um, feeling the breath, I'm going to blush when I say this. Feeling the breath as a lover. There was
Good.
something about that that really worked for me.
I'm glad. I'm glad you. But look, Yogananda. I mean, they're definitely never my own words. I can't lay claim to anything at all in my life. I mean, Yogananda spoke a great deal about the divine romance and about the beloved. And you look at Saint John of the Cross, and he speaks about the beloved. And you look at Saint Therese of Lisieux, and she talks about the love. You know, that deep love. I think the deep love relationship, whatever religion, whatever path you follow, that deep love that we know as lovers in our life, as real lovers to in our family or in our partnerships, I think that there's a reason why that's so precious to us.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason why when you enter that state and you breathe like that, that it means something to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This caress of of really loving relationship of that is very special. I don't, it's so, that word falls so short. I'm speechless. Um, but suffice it to say that image worked really well for me in terms of really feeling that love deeply at a deep level.
Hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it must be something to do with the connections we all have here. Because as I was doing that came up very strongly. I don't normally use it, but it seemed particularly appropriate now. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think that relationship we have to love and the coaxing of love in our breath and
Mm-hmm.
how we coax love and bliss and that transcendent, very subtle nature of pure love and pure bliss is really crucial to that luminous awareness. Because when luminous awareness arises, it does have that transcendent nature of
Mm-hmm.
bliss, and it's so overwhelmingly beautiful that to blush is really pure and very, very childlike, right? It's something we often do as children and we still feel funny about blushing, but in fact it actually really represents that deep, subtle grace of the emotion of a very pure love that you might have for a lover or for a mother or for a divine mother or a divine father or whatever it is that you hold in your practice or religion or meditation. That relationship, because it is a relationship, is really, really crucial. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very important for our hearts. So, when you listen to some of the great poets like Rumi, they are always speaking about love, about the lover and love, and about the power of the light in the heart. And I've always used that expression since I was very small, before I'd heard anything about Rumi, about the light in the heart, because that was what happened when I first started to meditate and I really went deep into the nature of the heart. My heart's very devotional. It's very simple. It's not much to it. I'll blush now. It's so simple. There's nothing there. And it's kind of, I reach this state of just where there's a light in the heart. And I'm just so astonished that a light rises out of the heart and it arises almost concurrently with that bliss. So I'd say, if that cue worked for you, stay on that sense of the lover within the breath, within your consciousness, because in effect, that is what we are truly doing. We're truly learning to bring love to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and to that transcendent consciousness, which is in you, me, and all others. So at the same time as you love yourself, you actually are loving your neighbor, your friends, everybody else. And some of the loveliest practices I've done, for example, in either Christian mystical meditation or in the Tibetan Buddhist meditation, have been of that same nature, where you send out love to another, a particular other, and you transform that particular other through love, and in turn that individual turns and radiates love back to you, and that lights up your love, and you radiate more love back, and gradually the heart, the heart is just overwhelmed in the end. I mean, it's quite sheerly blissed out. It has nowhere to go. It can't. You can't hang on to a me of where love is conditional, because the love that is blissed out has no me at the center of it. There is a selfless love and compassion that arises, and I do think that is a key. You've asked about that formless and formlessness, and that fullness and emptiness. I do think the fullness side of emptiness is about coaxing love and kindness, coaxing love and compassion, and really coaxing that. I've been on retreats where I've spent days doing that, and it's been, your heart is blissed out. You can't retain any sense of self. There is just a really deep sense of interconnectedness with all other beings, with everything around you. So I think that transcendent love and that lover, that word, I think that's beautiful. So I think.
And what I hear you saying too is it's not, so Ajahn Brahm talks so much about just being still. And we've talked about that, like all the answers are in stillness. But there is an active component to coaxing something where you're actually consciously adding a component.
And that is the point of the beautiful breath, where you're still witnessing the beautiful breath. And if you return to it, and you're going to, because when you return to it and you watch that breath in stillness, there's a subtle aspect of it that can be coaxed, which is what Jack Kornfield and Rick Hansen speak about about this coaxing aspect of the fullness within the emptiness. It's spoken about in a lot of traditions. I mean, it's very subtle, and a lot of it comes from that compassionate non-dual awareness. You are literally in a space where you compassionately are coaxing your breath. If that makes sense to anybody listening, and however you do that, whether it's in that sense of a lover, and I think it's finding, at this point in meditation for many people, because many people are listening are deep meditators and have meditated a long time and in many lives. It's about finding that cue for you that works. It's the cue for you that allows you to make those shifts, and you know what they are. I mean, you've come in with an agreement, into this life with an agreement that you've got these set cues, you've got these signs you're given from the absolute that make you blush and that make you resonate. I mean, they're going to shift you, they're going to move you. There's some element of being moved as a human being that is so transcendental. That's, if you look at many the pictures and stories of the saints who are moved to the point where they faint, swoon, pass out. I mean, that's a very deep level of being moved. So, blushing is, I'm hoping you won't pass out on the program next time around, but, there's that aspect of it. It's to do with being moved. We've got to feel moved enough about our planet to take action. We've got to feel moved enough about our meditation to be wanting to practice it night and morning, to be wanting it to be part of our every single moment. That is some degree of movement and of being moved. It really is. It's a big blush. So you could say that the meditation is all about having a big blush, of having a divine romance, of actually having that sense of a transcendental love.
And I love Yogananda's book, Divine Romance. So I'm glad you brought that one up. Yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. So the blushing wasn't maybe as far away as I thought.
No. I'm sure a good many of us meditators have blushed about the beauty that arises.
And I know I'm more out of time too, and want to close, but I want to just quickly go back to something you said before about attention and the importance of cultivating attention. And I distinctly remember earlier on in this path, being frustrated that we don't teach, for those of us who, didn't grow up in a household of meditators and Buddhists, you know, we don't teach where to place attention. I became very conscious of that. Nobody teaches you where your attention should be on a moment-to-moment waking basis. And I became just very aware that my attention was just sort of haphazard and random. And it's very unsatisfying to live in a random, haphazard, attentional way. And as I've been doing this work and sort of learning to mostly put my attention in the present moment, but just that practice of being conscious of where your attention is so fundamental.
Fundamental, so fundamental. And if you consider, you know, yourself, who's a very enlightened practitioner in terms of having the availability of many, many resources and lots of different assistance, and you consider how many billions of people are living in that haphazard attention state, it really is quite an insight into our planet. And it's quite an insight into what's needed. And as you say, we're not taught where to place our attention. That one simple skill, if it were taught from a very early age, would be so, so extraordinary. We could do such wonders with our awareness. You know, you almost think if we went back to, you know, a project zero where we're right back at the beginning, and how would we reconstitute the planet and all its learning? And you realize where you bring your attention to would be one of those first things that you'd help children to understand. Because otherwise, you're right, it's incredibly haphazard. It's just, it's wild out there.
It is. And I think it's the root of not maybe all suffering, but it's certainly there. It's right there at fundamental place of suffering, to not know where to place your attention.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that idea. We should explore that on a future talk. The let's go back to moment zero. What would we teach our kids?
It's a lovely thought. It's a lovely thought.
It's a lovely thought.
Yeah. All right.
Well, look, yeah.
Thank you so deeply. It was such a joy. It truly was.
Thank you so much for being here. And I learned so much every single time we're together, and just really appreciate your wisdom and time. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I so deeply appreciate you. And I learned so much too. I never know what's going to come up in these discussions, and it's always incredibly insightful and wise. So thank you for the wisdom that you bring to this and to this program and to all these interviews you do.
Thank you.
A treasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thanks everybody for being here. You can find Stephen at raisingourvibration.net, and you're going to be teaching another
course. Yeah, another course right? is coming up in July. So Kevin Shaninger and I both will be doing a new course. So if you're interested, exactly that, go to raisingourvibration.net. There's also a new app out, and there's lots of new meditations that we are going to be adding. So if you'd like to get hold of that, please also go to raisingourvibration.net, and you'll find all about it there. So it really is, it's a great joy to share these things. I mean, the app is just a sharing of consciousness with you in the same way as the courses are. And they're all about the things that we were talking about, where to place your attention and where to bring your awareness, and about the shifts and states that we can go through when we know where to place our attention, and when we know a little more about our awareness and what is possible, because there are infinite possibilities.
Indeed there are. That's so great. And I can't say enough good things about your course. I've been it through myself, and it just was like catapulting me down the rabbit hole more. Thank you so much for that.
Wonderful. It's a great pleasure. Well, there's a book, the course book will be coming out very soon too, in the next, well, as soon as I finish editing the last tiny bits of it. So it's Kevin and I have been working hard on that. So I'm always immeasurably grateful to Kevin. He's such a great soul. And his beauty shines through all of this work. And many of the things I say, I can't attribute to myself at all. They are merely a collective of the wonderful people like yourself and the ROV core group and all the beautiful people that were involved in, and especially Kevin, because his guidance has been priceless.
Indeed. And you can find me if you want to. I do one-on-one coaching and some group coaching at HeartMindAlchemy.com. And I just started a Patreon channel. So if you feel like, if you appreciate these interviews and you feel like dropping $1 in the bucket, so to speak, you know, if you feel so moved to do so, that's there as well. So really appreciate everybody who stayed with us. This was a long one, and but oh my gosh,
Thank you.
So wonderful. Thank you so much.
It was very wonderful. I was just thinking about the number of people that might be dropping dollars in the bucket and blushing at the same time. I think that could be the new, you could call it a blush bucket.
Blush bucket. Okay, there you go. I love it. If Patreon allows you to name your buckets, I'm going to call it the blush bucket. Thank you for that. That's lovely. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.